going on, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is the 1 month review of the Predator Accuracy Pluses in the launch colorway, the black, white, and pink. I'm very excited to share my thoughts about the Predator Accuracy Plus and .1s. I think they are a vast improvement over the edges, and I'll tell you guys why in this 1 month review. So without further ado, let's hop into the sole plate of this boot, which actually, funny enough, is the same as the Predator Edge, the previous generation of this boot. This is their facet frame sole plate. So the facet frame sole plate, this is in the firm ground variation. Lots of these triangular and diamond shaped studs. I found them to be totally fine for natural grass pitches and artificial ground pitches like the one I'm standing on right now. Yes, the studs are a little bit long. For some people, I didn't find them to be overly aggressive enough to where I wouldn't want to play in these. I know the AG version of this basically looks the exact same, except it just has smaller, shorter length studs. So that's something that if you're curious, that's a great option for those of you who want that same feel. For me, this sole plate is actually totally fine. It's very average as far as grip goes, but I do find it to be really nice for my foot shape because it is quite wide here in the toe box area, and then it's got a nice split sole construction, which really doesn't affect the performance or anything of it. It might affect durability like later down the road, but for me, this sole plate is pretty neutral for the most part. I didn't have any issues with it and enjoyed playing with it for the most part, especially on the .1s. They'll both get the same rating though on the sole plate just because they are the same. So for me, this is a 7 out of 10. Now let's move on to the heel area. So the heel area of this Predator Accuracy Plus is very roomy, but because of the really padded, there's some, hopefully you guys can see that, there's some big pads, and I hope I showed you in the unboxing video, but there's quite a bit of padding on the inside on both sides of the Achilles here. And so for me, this gets a really comfortable fit. It kind of, because there's pads, if you have a wider Achilles tendon or heel area, they're gonna be able to stretch a little bit and they're gonna be able to accommodate most people, but it is quite a high volume heel area. So for me, they're not going to get top marks just because there was a little bit of slippage. That could be because of the laceless construction. That might just be the nature of this football boot just in general. But for me, it was a really comfortable heel area, and that's what mattered to me most. It's not something that I got any pressure points in. When I did get slippage, there wasn't a whole lot of, in fact, there was zero hot spots, if you will. I never got any blisters or anything wearing them, which is actually pretty surprising for a laceless football boot. Sometimes I do get blisters, but really not often anymore, to be honest. So for me, this heel area is also going to get a 7 out of 10. Now let's move on to the upper, which was the massive update from the previous generation Predator Edge. This is a hybrid touch upper with this high definition grip on the upper. This allowed definitely a lot less stickiness than the previous generation, but still gave you a really nice striking surface and grip on the ball. Because this is a laceless construction, there is a lot of stretch, a lot of ability to get bigger foot shapes in here. So if you do have a wider fitting foot, if you do have kind of a more voluminous foot from this standpoint, right? So if your foot is a lot higher, you've got higher volume toes or higher, like a little arch in there, you're probably gonna fit in these. These do a really good job of wrapping your foot. The upper is really nice and soft. I've broken it in really well, and over some, not only training sessions, but also a lot of coaching in these. I think these are really comfortable to wear. There wasn't a lot of water retention either, so they did a really nice job of sort of wicking the water away. That might just because of the silicone coating on the top of this football boot, but overall I think this upper is really comfortable. It is definitely a little bit thicker than something you're going to find on a lot of other football boots. Even it's the competition for this football boot, which we'll talk about later. It's got kind of a thicker feeling upper than a lot of the competition in this segment for like a knit football boot or faux leather football boot. And for me, this is a really nice upper. I actually really like the feel of it, the shape of it, and the way that it stretches and molds around your foot. So for me, this is going to get an 8 out of 10. Now let's move on to Lockdown, which if you guys are regulars on my channel, you guys will will know, let's speak English please, that laceless football boots tend to not be that great with lockdown for me, for whatever reason, whether it's my playing style or whether I'm cutting a lot or whether it's just the way that my foot shape is. Laceless boots tend not to be that great in the lockdown area, and this is no exception to that rule. These were pretty horrendous, if I'm honest, for lockdown. My foot was slipping all over the place inside the boot, even with grip socks. That's not to say that if you are somebody who fits perfectly in a Predator Accuracy Plus that you won't be super happy with it. Just for me, performance-wise, this would be a walking around super comfortable all day football boot, coaching all day football boot, but it is not a football boot that I am willing to wear in a training session or a game anymore because of the risk of injury, honestly. For me, they just don't fit my foot tight enough, and I really struggled here on sort of the outside of my ankle where I've got really kind of weird depths and shapes to my foot, and you might as well. Everybody's foot shape is different, so you might have these might be perfect for you if you're watching this, but for me, these just are not great in the lockdown area. They're super comfortable. I love how they fit and feel, but again, zero performance as far as lockdown goes. So for me, these get a 3 out of 10. Break-in time for the Adidas Predator Accuracy Plus is really good. The shape of my foot fits this football boot really wide in the toe box, really wide in the midfoot. These actually fit and feel really nice straight out of the box. I had a tiny little hot spot right on the part where my bone sort of juts out right in the low end of that midfoot area right here. But for the most part, these fit really nicely out of the box. So really no complaints as far as break-in period of time. So for me, it's gonna get an 8.5 out of 10. Durability and build quality. As you guys can see, I have actually worn these quite a bit and they look almost brand new. Part of that could have been because they're black and I played mostly on AG pitches, so the turf stain doesn't look as crazy. There's some markings here on the sole plate area, and some of the studs have worn down just a little bit. But overall, honestly, build quality of this boot, football boot, has been really good. And I have had zero complaints, no separation. There's maybe a start of a little separation here on the left side. This is the left shoe, so that's kind of where I strike the ball and cross the ball most. But for the most part, the durability of this football boot has been great, and you guys will see more on the Predator Accuracy Point 1 that's white, so you'll see all of the scuff marks and stuff. I've worn these basically about the same amount of time over the course of the last month and a half now, and honestly, really good. So for me, this gets an 8.5 out of 10. Shape and fit of this boot is really, really, really good for my foot. The fit is fantastic for my foot. If you are somebody with a lot wider, high volume feet, I would definitely recommend this football boot. It is really wide in a lot of areas. It's got a nice accommodating heel, and the shape of this football boot fits my foot almost perfectly. So unfortunately, the performance side of it, not so great as far as what I need, but for those of you who are playing recreationally or just want a boot to kick around in and have really high volume feet or wide feet, these might be really good for you. And for me, they get a 9 out of 10 for shape and fit. All right, so other football boots with a kind of faux leather or fake leather, a lot of different boots now are getting the sort of knit treatment. Tekela V4 is, I would say, in the same category as this. GX, a little bit in that sense of being a knit football boot or a partially knit football boot. The Predator Point 1 lows or mid-cut is also obviously a competition to this, so to speak. And for me, these are at the bottom of the list just because of the performance. They're super comfortable, they're really nice to wear, but they just don't cut it for me as far as performance goes. Something like a Tekela, which is a definitely less wide, it's a little bit of a thinner fitting football boot than this one, is still going to get way better marks on performance and lockdown and all that stuff for me than this football boot. Even though out of the box this fits me better than the Tekela, so that's kind of a trade-off that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to get a boot that is harder to break in for the sake of performance, just because right now, at least in my career, that's what I'm most concerned about. But as you guys see the evolution of the channel, when I eventually decide to retire from football and I'm still doing boot reviews, if that's something that I'm still into, which I hope so, because I'm absolutely obsessed with it, I love it. I definitely think that a boot like this might be higher than the Tekela because I'm more interested in just comfort straight out of the box. So that might be something that changes. That's just going to depend on your priorities. So that's my recommendation, would be if you're somebody who wants the laceless kind of knit or fake leather football boot, both this and the Tekela are great options. The Tekela is definitely a thinner fitting football boot. This one's much wider and more voluminous, so you just got to pick which one you're willing to deal with and which one you're more interested in. So for me, bottom of the list on the competition, unfortunately. Performance of this football boot is gonna be reflective of the lockdown. It is very, very comfortable for me. I like wearing these football boots a lot. I think they're comfortable for my wide foot shape, but the performance really struggles. I found my foot slipping all over the place in them. Even with grip socks, my ankle was rolling a little bit, not in a dangerous way, but it's just not something that I'm willing to risk moving forward. I think this looks really cool. This particular pair of football boots will be for sale on my website at some point soon, but I do think that the Predator Accuracy Plus does a decent job of performance. You know, it's obviously not something that you're gonna really be high risk at. Obviously, if you fit in this football boot perfectly, then you're not gonna have any issues, but for me, the performance of this football boot is a 5 out of 10. All right, overall rating for the Predator Accuracy Pluses after a month or so, it's more like 5 or 6 weeks now, of testing this football boot and really getting a sense of what they feel like and fit like, and how they react with the ball, different scenarios, all that stuff. I think this is a really nice football boot. I love where the Predator line is going. It feels a lot more similar to a heavier version of the Pred LZs. It feels a lot more like, say, kind of classic Predators, going back to a little bit more heavy, solid power boot type feel and fit. It definitely is going to accommodate a lot wider foot types. If you've got thinner feet, I would not recommend these. But for my feet, honestly, these are a boot that I like to slip on anytime I'm coaching, anytime I'm walking around the pitch, or I don't know, like they're just a comfy pair of football boots. They're like slippers for my feet. That's how they fit for me. But again, slippers aren't great for performance in my opinion. But for me, because of how they fit and feel and because of how nicely they fit my foot, I'm gonna give this overall rating a 7 out of 10. Pretty solid, a little bit above average, but again, performance really struggles with this boot. So if you guys enjoyed that 1 month review of the Predator Accuracy Pluses, let me know down in the comments below what you'd like to see next. Hit that like button if you got value from this video. Let me know if you're gonna cop a pair of these. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome. Take care. I'll see y'all in the next video.